The wagon slid sideways on the ice-rutted road, and for a moment Caleb Thorne thought they were going over the edge. He jerked the reins, Boots' braced arms taut, as the horse whinnied in protest. The rear wheel skidded toward the ravine, barely catching on a patch of snow-packed rock. For a second, the only sound was Boone's labored breathing and the creak of wood under pressure. Caleb held still, listening, praying silently. Silas crouched in the back with his sister, didn't say a word. But Junie's voice cut the stillness. "Is it broken, Pa?" Caleb exhaled. "No. Just slid off the trail. We'll make it. Promise?" He didn't answer. A promise was just a lie wrapped in hope, and he'd run out of both around the same time Eleanor died. He climbed down, Boots crunching in the half-frozen slush. The wind hit like a slap, cold and mean. It tore through his coat, lifted snow into his beard. This high up in the San Juan Mountains, late October felt like deep winter. The skies were already bruising to storm gray, and Iron Hollow still lay a mile ahead. He checked the wheel. It had held. For now. This run was supposed to be quick one day, down one day back. But nothing stayed simple anymore. Not since she passed. Not since he became father, mother, and provider, all wrapped up in a man still learning how to breathe without her beside him. Caleb looked up at the sky. "Give me till morning," he muttered. "That's all I need." They reached Iron Hollow at mid-morning, the town wrapped in the kind of stillness that wasn't quiet, just watching. Smoke curled from chimneys. Horses nickered in the livery. The church bell hung silent, dusted with snow. Men stood in doorways with their hands in their coats. Women passed by in pairs, casting glances, their mouths small and sharp. Caleb pulled the wagon to a stop in front of Porter's Mercantile. Boone snorted and pawed the frozen ground. Silas climbed halfway out of the wagon, his boots dragging on the wood eyes, tracking every movement. Junie sat cross-legged beside him, fiddling with a doll made from string and hay. "Stay close," Caleb said. "Don't talk to nobody. I won't be long." He stepped down and turned toward the store, then stopped cold. She was there, just to the left of the porch, crouched low near a stack of crates. A woman. Young, maybe 30. Maybe younger if the world had been kinder. Her hair hung in dark, knotted strands across her face. Her shawl was so thin it barely clung to her shoulders. She knelt on both knees, not begging, not crying, just existing. Still. Silent. And no one looked at her. People passed within feet of her and turned their heads like they were trained not to see. Porter came out once to kick snow off the step and barked, "Move on, girl. You don't belong here," then went right back inside. She didn't move. Caleb stared. Something twisted behind his ribs. Hunger he could understand. Loss. Cold. But that kind of stillness, that quiet surrender, that was something else. Junie whispered from the wagon, "Pa, why do they all look through her like she's already dead?" He couldn't answer. Didn't try. He reached into the wagon bed and pulled out a small, canvas-wrapped loaf of bread, the last one they'd brought from home. He walked slowly toward her, ignoring the stares, ignoring the weight of their judgment. When he knelt beside her, she didn't look up, just stared down at her hands curled into fists against her skirt. "You eat today," he said quietly, placing the bread beside her. "Don't make it about pride. Just eat." She didn't thank him, didn't flinch. She turned her face slightly enough for him to see the high cheekbones, the cracked lips, the stubborn fire barely alive behind her eyes. "I'll work," she said, voice hoarse from disuse. "I don't need charity." He stood, didn't say it was. He turned to go. Porter stood at the window now, arms crossed. Judging. Caleb didn't care. Let them talk. Let them choke on it. The store smelled of dried beans, old wood, and something sharp like vinegar. Caleb loaded up on what they could afford: oats, lamp oil, flour, ammo. No room for sugar this time. No room for softness. Winter was a knife, and you didn't face it with sweetness. When he came back outside, she was gone. He looked left. Right. No sign. Just faint prints in the snow, already half covered. Silas met his eyes from the wagon. He didn't ask anything. But Junie did. Did she eat it? I think so. Where'd she go? Caleb didn't answer. They rode out of town in silence. The mountains loomed ahead, draped in mist. Junie dozed off against Silas's shoulder. Caleb kept his eyes on the trail, but his mind stayed behind in that alley on that face. He'd seen death before, up close. He'd buried his wife with his own hands. But that woman hadn't been dead. Not yet. She was fighting, even if she didn't look it. Fighting was familiar. So was pride. Pride kept you upright when the world wanted you to crawl. He should have said more. That night back at the cabin, Caleb couldn't sleep. The wind whispered at the eaves, tugging like fingers through the cracks in the wall. The fire had gone low. Silas breathed deep beside Junie on the cot near the hearth. Caleb stood at the window. Beyond the black tree line, snow was starting again. And then movement. A flicker near the edge of the woods. He blinked. It vanished. Or maybe it never was. Still, he walked to the door, opened it just enough to let the cold slice through him. He stepped out barefoot onto the porch. Snowflakes drifted soft and slow. No sound. No shadow now. But something in his chest shifted. Somewhere out there she was still alive. The knock came just after sunrise. It was soft, hesitant, like someone unsure whether they wanted to be heard at all. Caleb Thorne was already up feeding kindling into the stove and boiling water over what little coffee grounds remained. He moved slowly these days. Winter stiffened his joints and memory in equal measure. He looked toward the door. Another knock. 3 light taps. He reached for the rifle out of habit, then stopped himself. Instead, he crossed the cabin in silence and opened the door. There she stood. The woman from Iron Hollow. She looked worse than the day before. Her lips were blue. Her fingers shook. Ice clung to the hem of her threadbare skirt. The bread he'd given her was gone. She held nothing. Not a bag. Not a blanket. Not even shoes proper for this terrain, just torn flats soaked through and stained with mud and blood. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Then she swayed. Caleb moved fast, catching her elbow before she collapsed. Her skin burned cold against his hand. "I walked all night," she rasped. "The road forked. I picked wrong first." He guided her inside before he could think better of it. Junie stirred under the quilt near the hearth. Silas sat up on the cot, eyes sharp, already awake. He took one look at the woman and said nothing, just watched. Caleb helped her to the bench beside the fire and wrapped a wool blanket around her shoulders. "You'll freeze," he said gruffly. She gave a crooked smile. Almost did. Caleb poured hot water into a tin cup and handed it to her. She cradled it like it might disappear if she blinked. Steam coiled around her face. She didn't sip, just inhaled the warmth, eyes closed. "What's your name?" Caleb asked. "Anna," she said, barely audible. "Anna Islita." Junie patted over, curious. Are you staying with us? Anna opened her eyes. There was a flicker of something, a softness maybe that passed between them. Just until she warms up, Caleb said before Anna could reply. Maybe get her some rest. But Anna set the cup down and pushed the blanket off her shoulders. No, she said. Her voice was steadier now. I'm not here to beg. I didn't come to take. I want to earn. Caleb raised an eyebrow. How's that? You said yesterday it ain't charity if it's owed, she said. Well, I owe. For the bread. For not letting me die in a ditch. Let me work. Let me pay it back. He didn't answer right away. Silas stood arms crossed, eyes unreadable. Junie was already dragging a chair closer to Anna, beaming, like she'd just won something. Caleb took a breath. You know anything about cooking over a wood stove? Anna smirked faintly. If you can eat it, I can make it. Cleaning, sewing. Hauling all of it. He nodded once. Fine. You work, you eat. No favors, no handouts. Anna's gaze held his. I don't want your pity, she said. I want purpose. By midday, Anna was sweeping the front porch with Caleb's spare jacket tied tight around her. The wind still howled, but the sun had finally shown its face, a thin, pale thing behind drifting clouds. Inside, Caleb sharpened tools and watched her through the window. She moved slowly, but with intention. No wasted motion, no slouching. She paused every so often to blow warmth into her hands, but never stopped working. Silas helped carry in firewood, but said little. He kept glancing at Anna like she was a puzzle missing a few pieces. Junie, however, had attached herself like a burr to Anna's leg. She followed her around, asking questions, offering dolls, trying to braid her hair. Is your mama pretty? Junie asked at one point. Anna knelt down, brushed Junie's hair back gently. She was, Anna said. She smelled like lemon verbena and sang in Spanish. I haven't heard her voice in a long time. Junie didn't understand most of that, but she leaned into Anna's hand all the same. That night they sat around the fire. Caleb fixed the wagon harness in the corner. Junie colored on scraps of paper. Silas read silently, though his eyes flicked up at Anna often. She peeled potatoes at the table, sleeves, rolled hands finally warmed through. Her fingers were cracked and red, but she moved with practiced ease, like she'd done this before, like she once belonged somewhere, and this was the echo of it. Caleb spoke quietly. You got people Anna didn't look up. Not anymore. Where'd you come from north of Santa Fe? Married into the Reyes family. Caleb paused. That name meant something. Landowners, politicians, men with influence in a dozen counties. They put you out. She gave a one-shouldered shrug. My husband died. His uncle said I wasn't suitable to stay, claimed I had Navajo blood, said I brought shame. Caleb's jaw clenched. He didn't press. Anna added softer. He took the house. Everything. They say a widow's just a loose end. Silas finally spoke. That's not fair. Anna looked at him surprised. Grateful. No, she agreed. It's not. Later, when the children were asleep, Anna folded blankets near the fire. You don't have to, Caleb said from the table, sipping weak coffee. She kept folding. You let me stay. He nodded. She hesitated, then said, I won't stay long. Just till I can find something of my own. Caleb studied her face in the firelight. The lines of it were strong. Tired, but not broken. Not much to find out here, he said. Not with the snow coming. She looked at him. Then maybe I stay till spring. That surprised him more than it should have. Your children, she began, then paused. They're good. Your daughter sees things. Your son, he watches more than he speaks. You did right by them. He nodded once. Trying to. She added, they're watching how you treat me, what you let them believe about people like me. He didn't reply. He didn't have to. That night she slept near the stove, curled under an extra quilt. The wind rattled the windows, but the cabin felt steadier somehow. Outside, a wolf howled in the distance. Not close, but not far either. Inside, Anna opened her eyes briefly. Caleb was still at the table, staring into the flames, thinking too much. She smiled faintly, then closed her eyes again. In the morning she rose early. By the time Caleb stirred, Anna had already fetched water and stacked kindling by the stove. She moved quieter now, more like she belonged. Silas walked past her, pausing only a moment. You really gonna stay? Anna didn't turn. Until the snow says otherwise. He nodded once and walked away. Outside, clouds gathered again over the mountains. Caleb watched them from the porch, coffee mug in hand. He heard boots behind him. Anna. She looked out too. More coming. He nodded. You'll need help before winter hits. He looked at her. Think you're up for it? I've survived worse. Something in her voice said it wasn't bragging. He looked back at the trees. Snow would be here again soon. Maybe tonight. He didn't know why, but he didn't mind so much anymore. Snow had settled on the rooftop like a warning. It didn't fall heavy, not yet, but it blanketed everything in white silence. The kind of quiet that carried weight. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled steady, its glow licking the log walls, casting soft shadows that danced across the pine floors. The smell of boiled beans and wood smoke filled the room. Anna moved like a shadow herself. She crossed from hearth to table, laying out bowls with hands still red from scrubbing. Her steps made no sound. Her shoulders curled slightly inward, as though trying to take up less space. Her eyes flicked from one corner of the cabin to another, never lingering, never letting herself be still long enough to be seen. You move like you're scared of leaving footprints, Caleb said. She paused halfway to the stove. Old habit, she murmured. Some places leaving a mark gets you punished. He didn't respond right away, just watched her as he whittled a chunk of hickory in his lap, the blade whispering steady across the grain. You're not there anymore, he said. I know. But her voice said otherwise. Silas sat near the fire, sharpening the same knife for the third time. His eyes rarely left Anna. He didn't glare, didn't speak either, just watched, observed, measured. Junie chattered beside him, braiding a strand of wool into her doll's hair. Miss Anna, did you ever see a bear up close? Anna smiled gently. Once. Outside Santa Fe. Big as a horse and twice as grumpy. Junie gasped. What did you do? I held real still. He wandered off, didn't see me as worth the trouble. Like Silas does, Junie teased, poking her brother with her foot. Silas grunted. Ain't the same. Caleb looked up from his carving. Silas. The boy went quiet, head ducked low. Anna didn't respond with hurt. She only stood and stirred the pot again. Her shoulders straightened a little. Later, as the snow thickened outside, Anna stepped onto the porch with a basket of scraps for the pigs. Caleb followed after her with an empty pail, heading to the well. They worked side by side, boots crunching the icy ground. The trees loomed dark beyond the fence, snow collecting along their spines like a shroud. You ever had a place like this? Caleb asked. No. You like it. She hesitated. It's quiet. In a good way. You got a plan? Anna looked out over the land, the barn, the coop, the chicken wire sagging under the weight of snow. Not really. I only ever planned for the next day. I didn't have the right to dream past that. Caleb set the bucket down and leaned against the well. That you're doing or someone else's, does it matter? He met her gaze. It does now. She held his eyes a moment longer than she should have, then looked away. That night, Anna stayed up after the children had gone to bed. Caleb sat across from her at the table reading an old almanac. The silence between them wasn't awkward, just new. The kind that waits to see what shape it's supposed to take. I was married once, Anna said, suddenly, voice low. Caleb didn't look up, but the page in his hands stopped turning. To a man named Raphael. He was kind. At first. Then he got sick. And after he died, his family treated me like furniture they didn't want. Caleb said nothing. They told me I was lucky to have had his name. Said it didn't belong to me anymore. She looked up. Funny how fast a person can go from wife to burden. Caleb closed the almanac and set it down. I know what it's like to lose someone, he said. Not the same, but close enough. Anna nodded. I think the worst part, she whispered, wasn't being cast out. It was realizing no one even thought they were doing something cruel. Like it was just natural, expected. They were wrong. I know that now. Still doesn't make it easy. She stood slowly, joints stiff from sitting too long. I'll take first watch. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Ain't no wolves coming tonight. Maybe not. But habits die slower than men. She took her coat and stepped onto the porch. Caleb listened to the door creak closed behind her. Outside, Anna wrapped the coat tighter and sat on the bench beside the door. The moon was low and full, spilling silver across the snow-covered ground. Smoke curled from the chimney like a ribbon reaching for heaven. She could hear the wind whisper through the trees. Not angry this time, just curious. Behind her, the cabin creaked, a home trying to settle into its own silence. The next morning, Caleb found her already awake, kneeling beside the fire, stoking it back to life. You get any sleep? He asked. Didn't need much. You always lie like that? Anna grinned faintly. Only to people I trust. He handed her a cup of coffee. She took it, sipped carefully. Silas is still skittish, Caleb said. He's smart. He's a boy. He's been through something. Caleb tilted his head. That obvious. You raise a child in grief and it lingers. On the walls, in the quiet. You're not wrong. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Anna asked, what was she like? Your wife, Caleb, stared into the fire. Soft-spoken, tough, better than me in every way. Anna nodded. Sounds like someone worth remembering. She is. Anna didn't press. She never did. After breakfast, Anna scrubbed clothes in the tin basin while Silas chopped wood. He barely glanced at her. She handed him a folded shirt to carry inside. He took it without speaking, but their hands brushed. He flinched, almost dropped it. Anna stepped back. I won't hurt you. Silas swallowed. I know. But he didn't meet her eyes. Not yet. That evening, Anna read to Junie from one of Caleb's old books. Her voice was steady, rhythmic, not flowery, just simple, like water over stones. Caleb watched from the porch. The snow had stopped, but the clouds still hovered heavy with more. Something was changing. Inside the cabin. Inside him. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something like peace. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Anna stood in front of Eleanor's old cabinet. She didn't touch anything, just looked. Her reflection caught in the glass, distorted ghost-like. She whispered, "I'm not trying to replace you." Behind her, Caleb's voice was soft. "You don't have to say it." Anna turned. "I needed to." They stood in that hush long enough for the fire to pop. Outside, another wind rose. Caleb didn't notice it this time. He watched Anna reach up and place a single wooden spoon back on the shelf, with both hands. Steady. The wagon creaked into town under a low-hanging sky. Snow still clung to the corners of Iron Hollow, like a ghost too stubborn to leave, but now it was the people who felt colder. Caleb drove the team in slow, steady like always. Junie rode up front beside him, mittens swinging over the edge, humming to herself. In the back, Anna sat quietly, head low, hands folded in her lap. The distance between her and the others wasn't physical. It was something else, something she had started to feel the moment they passed the town line. Eyes followed her now. Hard eyes, measuring ones. No one smiled. No one waved. Even Merritt Porter, always eager to bark some insult, stayed silent behind the glass of his storefront. His wife Ruth turned away the second Anna stepped down from the wagon. Caleb noticed. So did Silas. Junie didn't. Not yet. Anna straightened her shoulders as she stepped down onto the packed snow. "I'll get the coffee," she said softly. Caleb handed her a few coins. "You sure?" She nodded. "They'll look no matter what. Might as well give them something to look at." He respected that. Anna never shrank. She walked quiet, but she never cowered. Inside the mercantile, silence greeted her like a slap. The two women by the sugar barrel stopped their conversation mid-sentence. An old man near the back shifted behind a rack of canned beans, muttering something under his breath. Anna ignored them. She moved toward the counter where Merritt Porter stood with his arms crossed, lips pursed. He didn't speak, just looked her over like she was something that didn't belong in polite company. "I need coffee. Half a pound." He didn't move. She waited. Finally, he turned, muttering filth, dressed in flannel. He scooped coffee into a sack, tied it tight, and slapped it on the counter. "2 cents extra," he said. Anna blinked. "That's not the posted price." "You heard me." Anna took a slow breath, then dropped the coins on the counter. "Keep the change." She turned to go. That's when she heard it loud enough for all to hear. Should have stayed where she was thrown out. The store went dead silent. Anna stopped, but didn't turn around. "Some men use God like a hammer," she said, voice calm but clear, not to build but to break. She walked out. No one followed her. Outside, Caleb had just finished loading flour into the wagon when he saw her coming. Her face was composed, but her hands were clenched. Junie stood on the porch steps, eating dried fruit and babbling to Silas. "You all right?" Caleb asked, voice low. "Fine." "What happened?" "Nothing I didn't expect." She handed him the coffee and stepped up into the wagon. But she didn't sit. She faced the chapel. It stood tall at the far end of the square, white paint peeling under the eaves, bell tower, crooked, but still proud. and on the front steps stood Preacher Bell, coat buttoned to the throat, hands clasped like judgment itself. He wasn't looking at the sky. He was looking straight at her. That Sunday, Preacher Bell spoke of shame, not sin, not redemption. Shame. His voice rang through the rafters like cold iron. He walked the aisle slowly, pausing at each pew, eyes burning like torches. There are some among us, he said, who hide behind good men's names, who crawl into homes they didn't build, whisper into children's ears that God forgives all things. His hand came down hard on the pulpit. But I tell you this, God is not mocked. Wolves wear dresses. Jezebels wrap themselves in silence, waiting for men too weak to notice. No names were spoken. But everyone knew. Caleb sat in the back pew, hat in his lap, jaw locked. Junie sat beside him, swinging her legs unaware. Silas looked straight ahead, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Anna didn't come. She stayed home tending the stove, boiling herbs for Junie's cough, keeping herself busy because there was no safe way to be still. When Caleb returned, he found her standing at the table, drying her hands on a cloth. "You heard," he said. "I didn't have to." He poured himself a drink of cold water, swallowed hard. "I didn't expect him to use the whole sermon." Anna shrugged. "That's what men like him do. Turn fear into faith." Caleb leaned against the counter. "I don't give a damn what he says. You've earned your place here." Anna met his gaze. "It's not you I'm worried about." Later that evening, Silas approached her. He didn't say anything at first, just stood near the doorway, watching her mend one of Junie's dolls. "You really married a Reyes?" he asked. Anna nodded. "Yes." "Why'd they throw you out? Because they could." He frowned. "But why didn't you fight?" "I did. It just didn't look like you think it should." Silas looked at the floor. "I don't hate you," he said after a moment. Anna smiled gently. "That's good. I just don't get it yet." "You don't have to. Not yet." He nodded and left the room. But when she looked down, she saw he'd left a small tin of buttons beside her mending cloth. For the doll. For her. That night, they ate dinner quietly. Junie told a long-winded story about a chicken escaping the pen. Caleb laughed more than usual. Anna listened and smiled. But as she cleared the dishes, a knock came at the door. Hard, slow, measured. Caleb opened it to find a letter nailed to the porch post. No signature. Just a single sentence burned into the paper. "A woman like that draws wolves." He brought it inside. Anna read it once, then again. Her face didn't change. "I'm sorry," Caleb said. "Don't be. I thought Iron Hollow had some decency left." "They do," she said. "They just keep it hidden on Sundays." That night, Anna stood outside under the stars. The wind carried the scent of pine smoke and snow. She thought about fire. Not the kind that warms. The kind that purifies. Inside, Caleb stoked the stove again, moving a little slower than before. The air in the cabin was warm. But beyond the tree line, something colder stirred. The sound of hoofbeats reached them before the figure came into view. Heavy, deliberate. Not the speed of a traveler. The rhythm of someone who wanted to be heard. Caleb was chopping wood near the barn when he heard it. He paused mid-swing, the axe blade buried in a block of pine, and looked toward the ridge. Snow had melted just enough to make the ground a slush of cold mud and ice. The trees trembled from wind that hadn't yet settled into spring. And from the shadows between the aspens came a man on horseback. He rode alone. Black coat, black gloves. A silver chain gleamed against his chest, pinned under a buttoned vest. The kind of man who carried weight, not because of muscle, but because of name. Caleb didn't recognize the face, but he didn't have to. He could smell the threat before the man even opened his mouth. Silas stepped out from the barn shovel in hand. "Stay back," Caleb said without turning. The rider pulled up near the gate, dismounted smoothly, and tied his horse to the fence rail like he owned it. His boots made sharp, clean sounds on the frozen mud as he approached. He took off his gloves one finger at a time. "You must be Mr. Thorne," he said, voice smooth as oiled wood. Caleb nodded once. "And you are Dorian Reyes." He smiled without showing teeth. "Cousin to Rafael Reyes. Husband, rest his soul, of Ana Isleta." Caleb's face hardened. He didn't offer a handshake. Your kind doesn't usually ride this far west. Dorian's smile widened slightly. "My kind, the kind who think other people's land comes with a receipt." Dorian chuckled. "You're not wrong, but today I've come not for land, but for family." He glanced toward the cabin. Anna stood in the doorway. Still, pale, watching. Dorian tilted his head in mock politeness. "There she is. Alive, it seems. I had my doubts." Caleb stepped forward. "You rode all the way out here to insult a widow." Dorian turned back to him. "I rode out here to retrieve her." Caleb laughed once, flat and hard. "She ain't a stolen calf, Reyes." No, Dorian agreed. But she carries the name. And names come with implications. Anna stepped down from the porch, slowly, arms crossed over her chest. "I don't carry anything that wasn't taken from me first," she said. Dorian faced her, now eyes sharp. "Your presence is stirring the town. Letters have reached our family. Your choices are being discussed." "I've made no choices," Anna said. "Just tried to survive." "Well," Dorian said softly, "some people think survival is rebellion in disguise." He stepped forward, but Caleb blocked his path. "She stays here," Caleb said. Dorian glanced between them, assessing. "You think keeping her here makes her safe?" "No," Caleb said. "I think it makes her free." Dorian's jaw twitched. His eyes lost their shine. "You're braver than you are wise," he said. "And you're louder than you are welcome." A beat of silence passed between them. The wind picked up, rustling the dry trees like whispers in a church. Then Dorian smiled again. "I'll give you time to reconsider. Think of the children, Mr. Thorne. Storms come faster when you ignore them." He turned, mounted his horse in one graceful swing, and rode back into the trees. That night, no one spoke at supper. Silas picked at his food. Junie didn't ask questions. Even the fire seemed quieter. Caleb sat with his arms crossed, staring into the hearth. Anna sat beside Junie, her posture stiff, her mind clearly somewhere else. Finally, Silas broke the silence. "He's not coming back alone next time." "No," Caleb agreed. Anna placed her spoon down gently. "He's testing the air, seeing if fear still works." Caleb looked at her. "Does it?" She didn't blink. "Fear stopped working the day I started walking in boots that weren't mine. I've lived on charity, silence, and other people's mercy. I'm done apologizing to men who never lost anything." Junie looked between them, confused. "What happens now?" she asked. Caleb stood slowly, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out a locked box. He opened it. Inside was an old revolver, 6 bullets, a worn leather holster, and a folded piece of paper, a deed. He set it on the table. "We prepare," he said. The next morning, Anna saddled the mule and rode into Iron Hollow alone. Caleb didn't stop her. She needed to face it. At the post office, she asked if any letters had come from Santa Fe. The postmaster didn't answer, just pointed to a pile labeled refused mail. She sorted through it until she found one addressed in clean handwriting to A. Isleta Reyes. Unopened. Sealed. She slipped it into her coat and walked out. Eyes forward, spine unbending. Outside, people stared again. But something had shifted. She no longer looked like a ghost. Now she looked like a fire waiting to happen. Back at the cabin, Anna sat by the window, fingers tracing the edge of the sealed envelope. She hadn't opened it. Not yet. She just needed to know it was real. Caleb watched her from across the room. "You don't have to face it alone," he said. "I already did," she replied. "Now I get to face it standing up." He nodded. Then said, "Echoes have teeth, especially when they ride in wearing family names." Anna smiled faintly. "I've bitten back before." That evening, Silas brought in more firewood than usual. He didn't speak to Anna, but he left her gloves by the fire to dry. Junie drew a picture of a woman with a braid standing between a house and a wolf. She handed it to Anna and said, "You're bigger than the wolf." Anna hung it on the wall, not with shame, but like a banner. Outside, clouds thickened again. Snow would come sure as anything. But this time it wasn't the snow they feared. It was the riders that came behind it. And Anna Isleta had finally stopped looking over her shoulder. Of course. Below is Chapter 6 of The Mountain Man and the Starved Bride, written in American English with the dramatic hook line from your outline, "A house isn't a home until someone's willing to burn for it." Caleb woke to the smell of smoke. Not the kind from a hearth or stove. This was sharper. Wild. Smoke that carried warning, not warmth. He grabbed his rifle before his boots, stepping out onto the porch barefoot as the cold bit into his skin. A soft orange hue flickered along the tree line in the east. Not sunrise. Firelight. Controlled or not, he couldn't yet tell. Behind him, the door creaked. Anna emerged wrapped in her coat, her braid tucked tight beneath a shawl. She didn't ask questions. She just looked. Caleb scanned the ridge again. Campfire, maybe. But it's too close. Anna squinted. "You think it's him? He said he'd be back. And men like Dorian Reyes don't bluff." Caleb nodded. "Not when they bring fire." The town of Iron Hollow remained silent. That silence, however, had changed. It no longer felt like distance, it felt like complicity. At the church, Preacher Bell had doubled down. Sunday sermons now circled like buzzards over Anna's name. Words like corruption, immorality, upheaval were spoken louder, stretched longer, pressed into the hearts of townsfolk like a brand. No one stopped to talk to Caleb at the mill. The blacksmith didn't look up when Anna walked past with Junie. Even the schoolteacher closed the door faster than usual when Silas approached. "They want peace," Anna said one evening, chopping carrots by the stove. "But not justice. They'd rather things go quiet than go right." Caleb nodded. "They think looking away means they're not choosing sides." "They're wrong," Anna muttered. "Silence always sides with the fire." 3 days later, it started. Junie spotted the first rider from the back window. "Papa," she shouted. "There's a man on a horse." By the time Caleb reached the porch, there were 4 of them. Dorian led the line, his coat billowing behind him like smoke. He didn't dismount. He sat high in the saddle reins, relaxed, like he had all the time in the world, and none of the fear he should have. Behind him were 3 hired men. One had a scar like a split branch down his cheek. Another chewed something that wasn't tobacco. The third just stared, eyes dull, lips stitched shut by choice or damage. Caleb walked out to meet them. Anna stood behind him, rifle at her side. Dorian tipped his hat. "Evening, Mr. Thorne." Caleb didn't return the gesture. "You're on my land." "That's true. But you see, sometimes land doesn't recognize its new owner until something burns." Caleb's voice dropped. "Try it. I swear to God you won't ride off it." The man with the scar shifted slightly. Not a full threat, just a nudge of posture. A reminder. Anna stepped beside Caleb. Dorian's smile thinned. "I came to offer terms." Caleb barked a laugh. "This ain't a parlor game. You don't offer terms to people who didn't invite you. You're harboring a woman who abandoned legal obligations. She was thrown out, not hiding. And yet here she is, living under your roof, bearing a name she has no right to." Anna took one step forward. "You want the name, take it. I'm done with it." Dorian's eyes flicked to her. "That name comes with land, reputation, debts unpaid. It isn't yours to discard." "Then sue the grave," Anna snapped. "My husband's in it. And that's the only Reyes who ever meant me any good." The man chewing grunted. Caleb clocked the twitch of a holster under his coat. "Let me be clear," Dorian said softly. "This can be solved two ways. One, you come with us. Quiet, respectful, discreet. Two," Caleb asked, "we smoke you out." Caleb stepped forward. "A house isn't a home until someone's willing to burn for it," he said. Dorian raised an eyebrow. Caleb added, "But the thing about fires. Mr. Reyes, they don't stop where you want them to. You burn my land, my family. Something of yours will burn too. Maybe a name. Maybe something deeper." Dorian watched him a long time, then turned his horse. "I'll return at week's end," he said over his shoulder. "If she's still here, we bring more than firewood." They rode off without another word. That night, the cabin didn't sleep. Silas sat by the window, knife in hand, carving patterns into the table leg without looking down. Junie curled up on the floor near the stove, clutching Anna's shawl. Caleb loaded shells. Anna boiled water and cleaned the guns, hands calm, movements exact. "They'll come back sooner than that," she said. "I know, we can't run, can we?" "No," Caleb answered. "If we do, they follow. And next time it's someone else's house they burn." Anna looked at him. "So we fight." Caleb met her gaze. "We stand." 2 days later, Anna rode into town alone again. This time she didn't try to shop. She went straight to the church. Preacher Bell stood on the porch lighting a cigar when he saw her. He smiled, but not kindly. "Anna Islata," he said. "What brings you to the Lord's house today?" Anna stood tall. "You've been telling people I'm a threat. I tell people the truth. You tell them what makes your world easier." Bell squinted. "You want something? I want you to say it. Say it to my face." He stepped closer. "You were a stain on a good man's name." Anna nodded. "I was also his wife. And I buried him. Alone. You think I'm the stain, then so be it. But I'm not the one hiding behind pulpits and fear. You're not welcome here. I don't need welcome. Just warning." He frowned. Anna leaned forward. "If anything happens to that house, to those children, if a single spark lands where it shouldn't, your name will burn right alongside theirs. People will remember you didn't just stand by. You lit the match. She turned and walked away. Preacher Bell didn't call after her. Back at the cabin, Junie was planting seeds with Silas, who'd stopped sulking long enough to dig trenches by hand. He didn't say much, but he worked faster when Anna watched. Caleb stepped outside with a shotgun and leaned against the porch. "They'll come tomorrow," he said. "I can feel it." Anna nodded. "Let them. They want to own what they never earned. They always do." He looked at her a long time, then said quietly, "Never wanted to bring war here." "You didn't," she said. "They did. You just decided not to be quiet about it." He nodded. The sky began to dim. Not dusk yet, just shadow. Clouds pulling together in the distance. That night fire didn't come. But smoke did. From the east. Someone was testing the edges again. Caleb walked the fence line twice before midnight. When he came back inside, Anna was sitting in the dark, sharpening the blade from the old hay cutter. "You don't have to do that," he said. She kept sharpening. "I know." He sat across from her. "We're not married," he said. "And I didn't ask for this." Anna paused, then looked up at him. "But you stayed." "That's enough for me." Outside, the woods whispered. But inside that cabin, for the first time in a long while, no one ran from the noise. They listened and waited. Together. Morning broke without color. Just pale gray light stretching across the snow-packed yard like the breath of something old. Caleb stepped out onto the porch with his rifle slung low, eyes sweeping the tree line. Frost clung to the windows. Smoke curled steady from the chimney. But the silence that wasn't normal. It was waiting. Anna was already awake, standing by the window in her long coat shawl tied tight around her shoulders. She had Junie's small hands tucked into her own, murmuring something too low to hear. Caleb turned his head. "You sure about this?" Anna met his eyes. "They're not coming for peace." Silas entered the room, then carrying the old Winchester he wasn't supposed to touch. He didn't ask. He just sat near the door and started checking rounds. Anna turned to Caleb and said, "Some folks run. Some folks stay. And the ones who stay write the ending. They came in from the ridge. 9 riders this time. Not 4. Dorian rode at the front like a judge with no gavel, flanked by men whose faces carried more scars than smiles. The Reyes crest was stitched on one saddle blanket in deep red, as if they wanted to declare something official. But nothing about it was law. Caleb saw them from the porch and called back over his shoulder, "They're here!" Anna stepped outside beside him. No fear in her face, just steadiness. Her rifle hung across her back, her hands free at her sides. The riders didn't stop until the hooves kicked up slush at the gate. Dorian dismounted slowly. "I gave you time," he said, brushing snow from his sleeve. "And we gave you your answer," Caleb replied. Dorian's face shifted. Less patience now. More calculation. "You're harboring what belongs to my family." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Caleb said. "Then this isn't a rescue," Dorian snapped. "It's reclamation." He waved a hand. 2 riders stepped forward. Caleb raised his rifle. "One more step, and I paint the gate with the inside of your kneecaps." The men halted. Silas emerged behind them, rifle half raised. Anna stood taller. Junie peeked through the curtain. Dorian saw the child's face. "I'd hate for her to see what happens when adults play war," he said. Anna answered him coldly. "She's seen worse. She just didn't let it change her." The standoff simmered. The snow whispered. Inside Iron Hollow, smoke curled from chimneys, but no one came. No help, no preacher, no lawman, no voice of reason. Just Caleb, Anna, two kids, and a boundary line drawn in frost. Dorian exhaled, shaking his head. "You think you're making a stand," he said, "but you're building a grave." Caleb stepped down the porch steps, slow, deliberate. "If I die protecting what's right," he said, "then I die better than most men live." Dorian's jaw twitched. Then he drew, fast, but not faster than Anna. Her rifle cracked like a thunderclap. Not at Dorian, at the dirt inches from his boots. The horses spooked. One reared. Chaos swirled like smoke and wind. But Anna's voice cut through it clean. "You shoot first, you'll wish you'd burned instead." The riders steadied their mounts. Tension froze mid-action. Dorian held up a gloved hand. "We're not here for blood," he said, his voice trembling between pride and panic. "We came for justice." "You came for a trophy," Caleb said. "But you met a woman instead." Dorian scowled. "This land, this woman, this story, none of it ends your way." He turned. "Let's go," he told his men. But not all moved. The man with the scar on his face stayed behind, eyes locked on Anna. "You were Raphael's," he said. "I buried Raphael," Anna replied. The man nodded, then turned his horse and followed the others. That night, the fire inside the cabin burned hot. But no one relaxed. Anna sat beside the hearth, rubbing her wrist, not from pain, but from memory. Caleb poured 2 fingers of whiskey into tin mugs and handed her one. "You shook him," he said. "He wanted fear," she replied. "I gave him reflection." Silas cleaned his rifle without being asked. Junie had fallen asleep on a bearskin rug with her doll in hand. Caleb lowered himself into the chair beside Anna. "You think it's over, no," she said. "But it's changed. How he saw us. Not just me. Us." Caleb nodded. "We'll still have to fight." "I know. But maybe now we don't fight alone." The next morning, something strange happened. 3 townsfolk came to the cabin. First was Ruth Porter. She brought a tin of cornbread and didn't say a word as she handed it to Anna, just gave a small nod, then walked away. Second was the school teacher, Mr. Elgin. He brought books for Junie, said nothing to Caleb, but lingered long enough to lock eyes with Anna and say children should have choices. Third was a young man Caleb barely knew, used to sweep the floors at the general store. He handed Silas a box of nails and whispered, "In case you need to rebuild." They left as quickly as they came. No grand gestures. But the silence had shifted. It wasn't complicity anymore. It was conscience. Caleb stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching the hills. Anna came up beside him. "I never wanted to be known," she said. Caleb smiled faintly. "Too late for that." She nudged him gently. "You think we'll be okay?" "I think we've been worse," he said. "And we came through." She leaned against him, both of them staring into the trees. No riders appeared that day. No gunfire. No threats. Just wind in the trees and the slow rebuilding of a life. Inside, Junie sang to her doll softly. Silas sat at the table, whittling again this time, not to distract, but to build. A carving of a bird. Anna placed the tin of cornbread on the shelf beside the dried herbs and the jar of honey Caleb had kept from the first season. She looked out the window, not for danger, but for space, possibility. She had stayed. So had they. And because of that, the story would continue not as someone else's tale, but as theirs. written not in ash or silence, but in living, breathing days. Great the document for Chapter 8 is ready. I'll now write the full chapter 1100 words, based on the outline and emotional progression we've established so far. You'll receive it shortly. The letter arrived with no fanfare, no messenger, no dust-kicked trail, just a folded envelope left in the mailbox at the edge of the property, wedged beneath a dried corn husk like a polite threat. Caleb found it before dawn, walking the perimeter with a cup of coffee in one hand and his rifle in the other. He turned the envelope over. The paper was expensive, the ink precise, the seal pressed with a gold crest Reyes. He didn't open it, just walked it inside and set it on the table where Anna was already making tea. She looked at it. Didn't move. It's from them, Caleb said quietly. I know. They could have sent lead instead. They still might, she said. Anna didn't touch the letter until the tea boiled over. Then, almost as an afterthought, she wiped her hands, sat down, and broke the seal. She read it once, then again. Then she folded it carefully, placed it beside her teacup, and sat back. Well, Caleb asked. She met his eyes, voice calm. They want me to sign a release. Full surrender of inheritance. Any land or claim Raphael held gone. In exchange, they'll ensure peace continues. Silas stood in the doorway, arms crossed. So they lost the gunfight, and now they want the law fight. Exactly, Anna said. The sheriff co-signed it. Dorian must have gotten to him. They'll twist the law till it chokes. Caleb muttered. Anna didn't flinch. They want the name cleaned, not carried. You gonna sign it? She didn't answer. That afternoon, Anna rode to the creek, behind the cabin, the place where she often sat when silence was needed more than words. She brought the letter, and the ring. She hadn't worn it in months. Raphael's gold band had sat in a tin box since the day she climbed into Caleb's wagon. It still fit, but now it felt heavier. Not because of love, because of everything it had come to mean. She held it up to the light, watched the way the sun caught the inscription inside Forever R. It was never forever. She opened the letter again. Words like legacy, stability, family reputation. Nothing about truth, nothing about freedom. Caleb found her there an hour later, crouched by the water, staring into the current. They still don't see you, he said softly. They never did. They just want the mess cleaned up, put in a box, buried quiet. Anna nodded. Thing is, a name only means something if you bled to carry it or dared to bury it. He crouched beside her. So what now? She stood. Let the ring drop into the water. She didn't watch where it landed. I'm going to town, she said. Iron Hollow didn't stop when she arrived, but it slowed. People didn't speak, but they watched. Some behind curtains, others through storefront windows. Preacher Bell stood on the chapel porch, lips moving in silent prayer or judgment. Anna walked straight to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Myron Gable looked up from his desk, startled. A man who preferred calm, even if it meant siding with cowards, Ms. Isleta, he said, already sweating. It's Anna Thorne, she replied coldly. If names matter so much. He cleared his throat. You received the letter. I did. Well, I believe it's a fair settlement, given the tension. She dropped the signed paper on his desk, then another. Gable looked down, confused. What's this first one's your precious surrender? You can send that to Dorian Reyes with my regards. And the second? She smiled. Land claim, she said. Filed under my own name. I'm staking the North Ridge. Raphael never registered it, but I lived on it long enough to earn it. You can't just, I have witnesses, records, and a postmark from Santa Fe that says otherwise. You're playing with fire, he muttered. Anna leaned in. Then you'd better learn how to burn. She left before he could stammer a response. As she walked down the boardwalk, Ruth Porter stepped out of the store. Ms. Wisletta, she called. Anna stopped. Ruth hesitated, then handed her a wrapped parcel. Bread, she said. Still warm. Anna took it. Nodded. No words. Just a breath of understanding between women who'd been told to stay quiet too many times. Back at the cabin, Caleb was stacking wood when she rode in. She handed him the bread, then the signed deed. He opened it, read the claim, looked up. You're serious? I am. You know what this means. It means the name Reyes won't ever bury me again. Silas stepped out, covered in sawdust. What happened? Anna grinned. We just became landowners. Silas blinked. Wait. Like actual legal landowners, Caleb chuckled. That's right. Hot damn. Junie squealed from the porch. Does this mean we can build a fence, a big one? Anna laughed. Yes, baby. A real fence. That night they didn't talk about war or fear. They talked about fences, chickens, planting wildflowers in the spring. And in that warmth, Anna wrote something she hadn't dared before her full name on the inside cover of a book Junie kept beside her bed. Anna Isleta Thorne. Not hidden. Not borrowed. Hers. In Santa Fe, Dorian received the notice 3 days later. He read it once, then set the letter aflame with a match he never meant to strike. His eyes didn't leave the flame, but his voice was steady when he whispered, Then we make her regret it. Smoke rose before the sun. It wasn't thick, not yet, but Caleb knew the scent, dry pine pitch and oiled rags burning just enough to send a warning, not enough to call it an accident. He kicked open the barn door to find flames licking along the rafters, dancing like they knew his name. He grabbed a bucket and heaved snow. Another. Anna ran in behind him, her shawl over her mouth, beating flames with a blanket, eyes narrowed and furious. Together they killed it before it spread too far. The horses screamed, but lived. The barn stood blackened, but breathing. What the hell is this? She asked, coughing through the smoke. He didn't answer right away. Just stood there in the damp ash snow, melting at his boots, chest heaving. Then that wasn't firewood. That was a message. Back in the house, Junie cried softly, rocking Silas's carved bird in her lap. The bird was broken, smashed under someone's boot left on the porch like a trophy. I found it when I opened the door, she whispered. It was right there. Silas sat on the steps, silent. He hadn't spoken since they'd seen it. His hands were clenched into fists, nails dug into his palms. They're not just after you, Caleb said. They're after what you've built. After the story. Anna looked at the ashes smudged into Caleb's shirt, then at the crushed wood in Junie's lap. Fire don't just kill, Caleb said softly. Sometimes it marks you so folks never see anything else again. She nodded once, eyes narrowing. Then we're done waiting. Anna returned to town the next morning, shoulders square, coat open to show the old rifle slung across her back. She walked slower than usual, made sure her boots echoed off the boardwalk planks. They wanted her to feel hunted. She made damn sure they knew she was hunting back. She stopped at the sheriff's office. Myron Gable looked up like a man already expecting judgment. "I know what happened," he mumbled. "Do you?" Anna asked. He cleared his throat. "I can't prove it was them." "No witnesses." "You think I need proof?" she asked, stepping forward. "You think the smoke in my daughter's hair is coincidence? You think that barn burned itself? You go making this public. I'm not asking permission," she snapped. "I'm giving notice." She dropped a folded paper on his desk. "What's this town meeting?" "Tomorrow." "Dusk." Gable looked down at the paper, at the names she'd signed, then back up at hers. "They won't come," he said. "They'll hear it anyway." That night, Anna didn't sleep. She sat by the window watching the tree line, her fingers resting on the butt of the rifle. Caleb sharpened his knife beside her methodically, like it was a meditation. "I keep thinking," he said quietly. "If we'd burned first, struck the match ourselves, none of this would have dragged out." "We'd be dead or fugitives," she replied. "Maybe. But it'd be done." Anna shook her head. "This isn't about ending it. It's about naming it." He looked at her. "Some things have to be said out loud," she whispered. By noon the next day, Caleb posted the notices. Silas helped hammering nails into fence posts around town. Junie walked beside them, handing over the scraps of parchment like she was distributing something sacred. Public gathering, one family, one truth. Some folks looked away, others read it, a few scoffed, but nobody tore it down. That was new. The meeting took place under the cottonwood in the square where the hanging nooses had long since rotted, but the memory of them hadn't. The tree stood like judgment itself, older than the town, older than every lie it ever held. Anna stood beneath it, rifle in the dirt at her feet, her daughter by her side, and her hand resting on her husband's shoulder. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She told the story. How she married a man who traded her name for cattle debt. How she nursed him through sickness. How his brother came after her once Raphael died. How she fled, starved, got taken in. How they followed anyway. How they tried to burn her out. And then she held up the charred pieces of Silas's bird. "They didn't just burn our barn," she said. "They tried to burn our children's peace, our future." She stepped forward. "Do what you want. Stay quiet. Pretend it doesn't involve you. But when your house starts smoking, remember you didn't say a word when ours was burning." After no one clapped, but no one left either. Ruth Porter stepped forward first. She didn't speak, just laid a sack of potatoes at Anna's feet. Then came the old miller's wife with 3 jars of preserves. Then came Mr. Elgin, the teacher. He laid down a bundle of cloth bandages. And finally, a stranger Anna didn't know. A wrangler with eyes full of dust and sorrow. He handed her a single bullet. "For if the law won't," he said. Later that night, Silas went to fetch water. He took the mule humming a tune under his breath. Just a boy in the dark. He didn't see the wire until it caught him full across the chest. The mule bucked. The bucket flew. Silas fell backward into the snow, screaming. Caleb found him minutes later, blood soaking his shirt barbs, digging through muscle. Anna screamed when she saw the gashes. She stitched them herself while he cried into a rolled blanket. "I didn't see it," he sobbed. "It was just there, waiting. They wanted it to be you," Anna whispered. "They wanted to remind us who they could reach." Caleb stood at the door, shotgun in hand, rage curdling inside his chest like rot. "We end this," he said. "No more speeches. No more meetings." "They'll expect fire," Anna said. "Good," he growled. "Let 'em burn." The cabin was silent long after Silas fell asleep. Junie curled up beside him, whispering stories to his bandaged arm. Caleb sat on the porch, staring into the woods. Anna joined him, laying a hand on his. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "Then, if I let the fire out of me, I don't know if I can pull it back." She nodded. "Then we'll pull it together." They sat in the dark for a long time, and the fire burned in both of them, not just to destroy, but to defend, to claim, to finish what others started in their own damn way. The wind howled through Iron Hollow like it was warning someone, maybe everyone. Anna stood at the tree line behind the cabin, her coat drawn tight, eyes scanning the ridge. The trap they laid for Silas had shifted something in her chest. Not just anger, not just grief, certainty. Tonight was the line. Caleb came up beside her, shotgun over one shoulder rope in his hand. "Word's out," he said. "They're meeting at the old ranch. Dorian's bringing men in from the border towns. Paid ones. How many more than us?" Anna looked out at the dark trees. "Doesn't matter." Caleb squinted at her jaw tight. "You ready to do this all the way?" She didn't blink. "You don't get to wash your hands in blood and call it legacy," she said. "They want to name war, they're getting one." Silas was still pale but upright, his arm wrapped tight in fresh bandages. He sat on the porch, sharpening a small knife with his good hand. "I can't fight," he said, as Anna passed by. "No one's asking you to," she replied. "I know," he said. "Just don't like feeling like dead weight." "You're not," she told him. "You're the reason we're still here." Junie sat beside him with her sketchbook. She drew the cottonwood tree, then Anna's rifle, then the shape of a flame with thorns around it. "What's that?" Silas asked. "Our flag," she whispered. The plan wasn't complicated. The meeting at the Reyes Ranch was scheduled for midnight, one of those secret gatherings that everyone knows about, but no one names aloud. Caleb said they'd hole up in the old cantina room near the stables. No windows. One door in, one out. Perfect if you're trying to trap someone. Or be trapped. Anna packed light. 2 knives, 1 pistol, her father's rifle, and a letter. She didn't tell Caleb what was in the letter. Not yet. But she slipped it in Junie's sketchbook before they left. Just in case. They rode in through the orchard trail, silent as fog horses left 2 hills behind. The snow helped muffle boots. The moon barely broke through the clouds. Anna liked it that way. The dark made men nervous. By the time they reached the edge of the Reyes Ranch, they could hear the voices, laughter, cups clinking, and beneath it tension thick as blood before a storm. They circled around, crouched in the underbrush. Caleb pointed to the cantina door. 3 guards out front, he whispered. "Rest are inside. We'll draw 'em out. You flank." Anna nodded, but then a scream cut through the cold. Junie's voice. "No, too high. Too afraid." Then another voice. "Ruth." Something was wrong. Anna stood straight up before anyone could stop her and ran toward the sound. Caleb cursed under his breath, followed her. What they saw made Anna stop cold. Ruth Porter and her husband Robert tied to the posts by the horse stalls. Bloody. Bruised. Junie's sketches pinned to their chests like accusations. Dorian Reyes stood over them with a cigar in one hand, a riding crop in the other. "Didn't think you'd come so easy," he said, turning when he saw Anna. "Guess some bait still works." Caleb raised his shotgun. "Don't," Dorian warned. "Not unless you want the little one to see more blood." "She's not here," Anna spat. "No," he said. "But everything gets back, especially regret." The standoff cracked open fast. Caleb fired first. Missed on purpose, close enough to make one of the guards drop his gun. Anna lunged left, took down a second with the butt of her rifle. Her body moved on instinct now, the sharp clarity of war, not new, just remembered. Dorian swung his crop at Caleb, who caught it mid-air, yanked him forward, and landed a punch that cracked bone. "You think this is legacy?" Caleb growled. Dorian stumbled, blood pouring from his nose. "This is cleansing." "No," Anna said, raising her rifle. "This is reckoning." She didn't fire. Not yet. Not until he looked her in the eyes and said it. "You were never one of us." She pulled the trigger. The bullet didn't kill him, but it took him down, screaming, grabbing at his leg, enough to stop the others from stepping in. She walked toward him, slow, steady. "You buried my husband," she said. "You tried to bury me." Dorian coughed, eyes wide. "You killed your own name with greed," she continued. "Now all you've got is dirt." "You're not Reyes," he whispered. "No," she said. "I'm Thorn." They untied Ruth and Robert, got them to their feet. Junie wasn't there, Anna had been right, but word would reach her by morning. By the time Anna walked out of that ranch, she had Dorian's coat in her hand, blood on her sleeves, and nothing left to apologize for. Caleb looked at her like he was seeing something both broken and reborn. "You all right?" he asked. "No," she said, "but I'm finished pretending." They burned the Reyes meeting house that night. Not the ranch, not the land, just the walls where silence had grown like rot. Anna lit the match. Caleb threw the torch, and they watched it go up, not as vengeance, but as closure. Names don't live in buildings. They live in choices. And Anna had made hers. The next morning, Junie opened her sketchbook and found Anna's letter. Inside was a single sentence: "If I don't come back, remember you are not what they tried to make you forget." Junie stared at the words a long time, then added one more page to her book. A drawing of Anna, standing beneath the cottonwood, flames behind her, and the name Thorn written across the sky. Snow fell quiet that morning, the kind that muffled everything and made the world feel like it was holding its breath. Anna stood at the edge of the burnt-out meeting house, watching the last column of smoke twist up into a sky gone pale with cold. Caleb came up beside her, dragging a piece of charred timber off the trail. "You sleep?" he asked. "No." "Me neither." She stared straight ahead. "Feels like a chapter ended." Maybe he said. "But the book ain't closed yet." Behind them, Junie and Silas were packing up the wagon. Not to leave, Anna had made that clear. But they needed supplies, ammunition, blankets, and word had gotten out. Some folks were calling Anna a murderer, others a folk hero. Most just said she was trouble. Truth was, she was tired of being called anything but her damn name. They returned to the homestead just past noon, wheels crunching over fresh snow. Ruth and Robert Porter were there waiting, standing by the porch, with awkward gratitude written in their stances. "We came to help," Robert said. "Owe you more than we can say." "You don't owe us," Anna replied. "Just stand for what matters when the next time comes." Ruth hesitated, then handed over a parcel wrapped in brown cloth. Inside were court documents sealed with the town's notary mark. "Dorian Reyes filed a false land claim last spring," she said. "Filed it in your name forged. If you hadn't stopped him, your deed would have vanished within the year." Anna's hand tightened on the paper. "Reyes knew what he was doing," Caleb said. "He wanted to gut us from the inside out." "Well," Ruth said, meeting Anna's eyes, "he failed." Later that night, the fire was low and the room silent save for the wind scratching at the windows. Caleb sat cleaning his rifle. Junie sketched in the corner. Silas was asleep, his breathing steadier now. Anna paced. She hadn't told anyone yet, but she'd found something in the ashes of the meeting house. A metal lockbox, bent from heat. Inside it, beneath layers of soot, was a folded letter addressed to her in Rafael Reyes's handwriting. She hadn't opened it. Not yet. But the weight of it sat in her coat pocket like it wanted to crawl up her spine. She finally sat beside Caleb and laid the letter down between them. He glanced at it, then at her. "You sure you want to open that?" he asked. "I don't know what I want," she admitted. He nodded once. "Then wait until you do." She stared at the name written in looping script. Ana Isleta Reyes. It looked foreign now, like someone else's skin. At dawn, Ana rode alone out to the canyon ridge. It was a place Rafael used to take her when they still lived like strangers, pretending to be lovers. She used to hate the silence of it. Now she needed it. She sat with the letter open in her lap. It wasn't long, but it cut. In it, Rafael confessed he'd known she was never meant to be part of the Reyes name, not in the eyes of his family, not in the church, not in town. He wrote that he loved her anyway, that he'd failed to protect her, that Dorian's threats had been growing even before Rafael's fever set in. And then the last line. "I named you Isleta because it means crossing, because you were meant to carry us through." She folded the letter and stared at the canyon below. She wasn't carrying anyone anymore. She was planting something new. When she returned to the cabin, she found Caleb chopping wood, the kind of rhythm work men do when words won't help. She held out the letter. I read it. He wiped sweat from his brow, took the paper, didn't unfold it. "Was it worth keeping, Sha?" She shook her head. It wasn't about truth. It was about guilt. "You still carrying it?" He tossed the letter into the fire. Anna watched it curl and vanish. "You don't get to carry a name," Caleb said, "until you've carried its weight." She didn't respond. Didn't need to. 3 nights later, word reached them that the Reyes family's holdings were being contested by the federal land office. The fake claims, the illegal acquisitions, the burned evidence, it all came back around. Dorian hadn't died from the gunshot, but his name had. And in Iron Hollow, names were everything. Anna stood before the town council the next week, not to speak, but to file. She signed the land under Thorn, not Reyes, not Isleta. Just Thorn. Her family's name. Her family's blood. A name forged in fire and fought for by hand. As she left the office, Myron Gable tipped his hat. "I don't agree with all of it," he said, "but I sure as hell respect it." Anna nodded. "That's all I ever wanted." Back at home, Junie ran to her with the sketchbook flapping in the wind. "I finished it," she beamed. Anna opened it. On the last page was a tree bigger than the cottonwood, with roots stretching through the soil, and names carved into every limb: Caleb, Anna, Silas, Junie. At the bottom, scrawled in bold charcoal strokes, was a word: belonging. Anna closed the book, kissed her daughter's forehead, and whispered, "Then it was all worth it." Spring came late that year. The ground stayed frozen longer than usual, and the thaw was slow. But eventually, the snow let go of the land, and color crept back into Iron Hollow, like breath returning to the chest of a sleeping giant. Caleb stood in the field behind the cabin, boots sunk into wet earth, repairing the split-rail fence. His movements were steady, deliberate, the kind of patience that came from years of silence and hard-earned peace. Anna was on the porch, sewing a patch onto Silas's coat. Junie sat cross-legged beside her sketchbook in her lap, humming some tune that didn't belong to any song Anna recognized, but it was beautiful all the same. No one had said it aloud yet, But the war was over. Not with a bang. Not even with Dorian's fall or the court filings. It ended with breath, with quiet, with roots taking hold in land that tried so long to spit them out. Townfolk passed more often now. Some came by to drop off supplies, flour beans, even a bolt of cloth from the traveling merchant. Others came just to sit for a while. The sheriff, Ruth, old Miller Tom, who lost a son to a dispute over barbed wire long before Anna ever stepped foot in Iron Hollow. None of them said sorry for the years of silence, but they stayed longer each visit. And that said enough. One afternoon, while planting onion bulbs, Anna found a bone just beneath the surface. Small, smooth, weathered, she held it in her hand for a long moment, wondering whose it had once been. A fox, a bird, something forgotten by time, she didn't know. But she didn't rebury it either. She set it on the windowsill in the kitchen, a reminder that even the broken things had stories to tell. The children were changing too. Silas no longer flinched at shadows. He'd taken to carving again, using softer woods this time, willow mostly. He made tiny animals, smoothed them down with his thumb, and left them in quiet places for others to find, like blessings scattered around the land. Junie talked more, asked questions. Deep ones. Do people forget on purpose, she once asked Anna, or do they just get tired of remembering? Anna thought a long time before answering. I think they forget what hurts the most, she said, and what matters the most. Then we shouldn't forget anything, Junie whispered. Anna kissed the top of her head. That's why you draw. Caleb didn't say much about the past anymore. He split his time between tending the horses, hunting when needed, and sitting with Anna under the cottonwood in the evening. One night, he handed her a wrapped package. What's this? She asked. Open it. Inside was a wooden sign carved with care. Thornstead. Anna ran her fingers across the grooves. Not Reyes, not a borrowed name. This one was chosen. She looked at him, eyes wet but steady. Home, she said. He nodded. Ours. Late one night, a rider came to the door. Stranger, face drawn, hat pulled low, said he was looking for shelter on his way north. Anna looked at him for a long time. The way his eyes flicked to the gun at Caleb's hip. The way he called her miss without looking her in the eyes. She saw herself in him, saw all the ones still running. You can stay in the barn, she said. We'll feed you. Then you move on. The man nodded. As she turned away, he called after her. You ever stop running? She paused. No, she said. We just changed direction. The next day, Junie helped paint the new sign, hung it by the front gate with care. Silas carved a hawk above the lettering. By week's end, neighbors started calling it Thornstead, too. The name stuck, not because they forced it, but because it fit. One quiet afternoon, Anna sat alone at the ridge where she once read Raphael's letter. She pulled the last remnant of it from her coat, a scrap she'd kept folded in the lining creased with time. It read, You were meant to carry us through. She looked out over the land, over her children, over the home they built. And then she lit the paper with a match. Let the wind take the ashes. Not in anger, but as release. Some burdens weren't meant to be carried forever. That evening a storm rolled in. Soft at first, just thunder muttering over the hills. Inside the fire burned low. Silas read from an old book. Junie fell asleep in Anna's lap sketchbook, still open to a half-drawn image of the cottonwood. Caleb stood by the window, arms crossed. You ever think it'd look like this? He asked. No, Anna said softly. But I hoped. He nodded once, turned back to the dark. "You did good," he said. "We did," she corrected. In the final days of spring, wildflowers covered the ridge. Bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush, the kind that only grew after fire had cleared the land. Junie ran barefoot through them, laughing. Silas chased after her wooden bird in hand. Anna and Caleb sat in the grass, hands laced. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The story had already been told. Now it could rest. Some stories are born in silence, others in fire. But the ones that stay, truly stay, are the stories carved by hands that refuse to let go, and hearts that dare to begin again. The Mountain Man and the Starved Bride was never about revenge. It was never just about survival. It was about choosing to love louder than the hate that shaped you. It was about names, yes, but more than that, it was about claiming the right to write your own. And sometimes it takes burning everything down to finally see what was worth keeping. The rest, let the wind carry it.